did I miss that you want us to say our name or the title of our
So we're going to introduce each person using a little part of the bio. Hi there. A little part of the bios that you sent us, and then you can say whatever you should be. It's a pretty good summary of what you sent us already.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah. I'm loving everyone's backgrounds. This is great. Hi, Selena. Hi, Nicole. Hi, Karan. Hi, Olga. We have two Sophias, Sophia with an F and Sophia PH.
Hello, hello.
Hi. We should definitely take a speaker's pre-meeting selfie before we let everybody else in.
I'm really curious as to who iPad is. Should we just let him in, just in case, because they were here early?
Sure.
Okay, let's see who iPad is.
Can you cut that off?
Could be
iPad 2.
Mystery.
Oh, it's another one of my fans. Hey, Aunt Susie.
Wait, now who is that?
Hi, welcome.
Guy.
All right. Oh, we can see that.
Good. I'm going to try that.
Okay. Do you want me to add it really quickly to the?
No. I've got it.
Okay.
I just have to turn my filter or my background off to get it.
Both Sophias are here.
How are we doing on our speakers? Is everybody almost here?
Karen here? I think yes, Karen's here.
Karan.
Karan. I think we're just waiting on Ken.
Oh yes, Ken. Okay. Well, you know what? Maybe what we'll do, everybody, is we'll take a quick selfie since we're all here and have our cameras on, and then we'll open up the room. Stephen will be our DJ, and we'll get started a little after 7:30. So Jay just walked away. Hold on. Keep your smiles on. Here he is. All right. So everybody look at your cameras, and I'll take 2 shots. 3, 2, 1. Yay. You guys, I hate selfies in real life, but selfies, everyone looks great. So smiles on 3.
Okay, so I think we're good.
Okay, Stephen, before we open up the room,
Yeah.
I'm going to share my screen, and you want to cue up the music?
It's ready.
Okay, let's cue the music.
The only, Julia, do you have Ken's number?
I will send him a message on Instagram. I feel like he wants to.
Perfect. Okay, great. Sounds good. Here we go.
Right. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Sweet Stories in September. We are excited to get started soon. I'm Julia from Tradition Kitchens, and we would love for everybody as you're coming in to introduce yourself. Please make sure you're on mute as well, because we can hear everybody. We are playing some great music that our DJ Steven helped us create.
You know, you should put these people up here on the side for a minute, or put them up here, roll them all up here.
And Steven, if you don't mind going through and mute the people who might not know how to mute themselves.
Oh, there you go. Okay, mute.
You have to.
Welcome, everybody. We have a Zoom chat, and you can tell us what is a food that you have a sweet memory of. I'm seeing some great things like grandma's homemade bread, dumplings, cake, cassava cake, which we'll have to ask you to tell us more about that. we will get started in a few minutes. Thanks everybody for being here. I'm Julia, along with the Tradition Kitchens team of Stephen, Alana, and Emmy. We've got some music playing in the background. Feel free to dance and enjoy the classic sugary songs. And use our chat to let us know what your favorite sweet memory of food is. We're going to get started in a couple of minutes. We have a great number of people.
Yeah, 7 notices.
Am I gonna be able to get
7
back?
notices.
If you're just joining us, we are so excited to have you. Welcome to Sweet Stories in September. On behalf of Tradition Kitchens, welcome. I'm Julia. You're listening to some sweet music from our DJ, Stephen Alexander. And we're going to get started in just a minute. We're welcoming everybody. Feel free to get in a sweet spirit with a creative background that's food related. If you don't know how to put up a virtual background, let us know in the chat via message and we'll help you. On Zoom, there is a way that you can mute yourself, which we really appreciate, so we don't hear all your background chatter. We will try to mute you. You should automatically be muted as you're coming in. And I think we will get started in just a minute. We do ask everybody to join us on video so that we can see your smiles as you hear these great, sweet stories. So we're gonna get started. I think the music is lowered and we welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us for this exciting evening that has been a while in the works. And on behalf of Tradition Kitchens, I'm Julia, the co-founder, and want to welcome you. If you haven't yet shared in the Zoom chat, please tell us what is a food that you have a sweet memory of, because that is our theme this evening. So I want to give a quick introduction.
Oh, cabbage.
And we may just do a quick Zoom how-to. So everybody, on your top of your, on the bottom left of your Zoom, there is a mute button. We have set it to mute you automatically, but if you are not muted, please do so now because we can hear you and we don't want to interrupt the great stories that are going to be happening this evening. But definitely next to it, there is a video on. Turn on your video so we can see you and your smiles throughout the evening. If you have any Zoom questions throughout the night, we recommend that you private message Stephen Alexander so that he can help you work through any of the challenges, or Alana Snyder. So this is Stephen or Alana. If you can mute whoever is just joining us, keep an eye on those names, please, so we can not have the background noise. But here's the Tradition Kitchens crew who helped make this evening possible. So all of us picked our favorite Bitmojis, and if you are a Bitmoji person and you can find a way to put them into Zoom chat, we welcome that. I think you might have to copy paste. If you're an emoji person and on a Mac, Command Control Space allows you to react with emojis throughout the fun conversation series that we have tonight. So I really, really want to thank Stephen, Emmy, and Alana for their incredible partnership and work to make this evening possible. Without them, Sweet Stories would not have happened, so we want to thank them. We are going to get started in just a minute, and I want to encourage you throughout our conversation series this evening, when you're hearing the stories, to use the Zoom chat feature so that you can react and encourage our wonderful speakers as they share their stories. So before we get started, and I toss it over to Stephen to kick us off, we're gonna do a Tradition Kitchens tradition, which is called a Zelfie. A Zelfie is a selfie on Zoom, which means we ask everybody to please turn on your video so we can see all of your smiling faces and look at the camera. And we're gonna take a screenshot of everybody who's here, and then we can celebrate this with everyone else. So we have a great group of about 60 people on this call. Their friends, their family, their new friends. And I'm gonna ask everybody to look at the camera on your computer. I'm gonna take 2 shots. So last chance for anybody who wants to turn on their video. Otherwise, we will skip you. So sorry. All right, 3, 2, 1, smile. Amazing. And then I'm gonna get the rest of you who may have just gotten on the other screen. 3, 2, Arsh, look at the camera. 1. Okay, I can see everyone.
We'll just do
and
this.
so happy to have you. So I'm gonna toss it over to Stephen to get us started. Just a quick note about Zoom. Again, we wanna remind everyone on the bottom left is mute and start and stop video. We'd love for you to be on video. On the top right, there is a speaker view and then there's a gallery view. So we will spotlight our speakers when they're talking, but if you want to see the magic of everybody who is here in Zoom with us, it's like looking out at an auditorium. I highly recommend checking out the gallery view. So take it away, Stephen.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. It's so awesome to have so many people here with us. I am Stephen Alexander, one of the Tradition Kitchen's ambassadors, and it means so much that you're all sharing the virtual stage with us tonight. I'm just going to explain a little bit about how tonight will work, and then we'll get started right away. So we're going to introduce each storyteller with a short slide, bio, and some background music. If you want to dance along, all the songs happen to be food themed, which is definitely not on purpose. If you happen to take any photos of your friends or family this evening, please be sure to tag us at Tradition Kitchens on Facebook and Instagram when you post it. And we're so excited to hear from each of our storytellers. So let's get right to it and make sure you stay muted. Feel free to use the chat. So let's kick it off with Erica. I am going to introduce Erica with some background music. So I'm just going to read a little bit about her and then she'll get started. Erica is an entrepreneur, dating coach, podcast host, comedian in the shower, dog owner, whiskey drinker, and lover of puns and crossword puzzles. She spends her days helping people with online dating as the founder of A Little Nudge. And in the rest of her time, she loves connecting people and sharing stories. Take it away, Erica.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So, if you think you can be really quiet, I would love for a few people to unmute just because it's really hard when you say something you think is funny and nobody laughs. So by all means, if you think it's really quiet where you are, feel free to unmute. Okay, so am I spotlighted? I don't see myself.
Yeah, you're good.
Okay, excellent. Okay, so there I am. Okay, so about 12 years ago, I would say, I went on this date and it was at 3 o'clock on a Sunday. And don't worry, we're gonna get to the food stuff. But we went for a coffee and I found it weird that the guy who it was from, at the time I was on J-Date. At the time, so I got there and I found someone who looked like my date, but this person had already had half a coffee and looked very engrossed in his work. And I went up to him and I said, excuse me, are you Adam? And he's like, yes. So I sat down. I guess he had just gotten there early, whatever, but I found it rude. Maybe start fresh with me. So I ordered my coffee and we start chit-chatting and the conversation was fine. You know, I don't remember too much about it, except we started talking about food, which is one of my favorite topics. And then we started talking about cooking. And he asked me, what is your favorite food to cook? And I said, my grandma's kugel. And I don't know this crowd, but in case you don't know, kugel is a Jewish noodle pudding. And my grandma's was the best. Obviously, I'm not biased at all when I say that, but it's a sweet kugel. So it has pineapples and raisins and lots of sugar. And I once asked her, what's the secret to your kugel? How is it so good? And this little 5'2" lady, skinny, she goes, a whole stick of butter. I was like, all right, Grandma, thanks. So I say my favorite food to cook is kugel. And he looks at me and he goes, oh my God. Kugel is my favorite food to eat. And I'm like, Seriously, this is strange. I mean, who am I to judge it? I love kugel. So he goes, on our second date, we should make kugel. And I'm thinking that's awfully presumptuous, but let's see how this goes. So we wrap up the date and we do plan a second date to make kugel at his place. And in advance, he says to me, you know, I'm a single guy. I don't have a baking dish. Do you mind bringing your baking dish over? I'm like, okay, so whatever. I bring my baking dish over. And I get there and we go food shopping together because he didn't know what to buy. And we buy the standards, you know, we buy it has to be the extra wide egg noodles, only the extra wide. And I see someone shaking their head because that's the best. And of course, you know, the whole stick of butter, brown sugar, raisins. We use apricot preserves, pineapple chunks. I mean, it's so good. So anyway, we buy all the ingredients for the kugel, and that's all we buy. So I assume, I mean, this is a Saturday night. I assume he's feeding me dinner because kugel is not dinner. Kugel is an amazing side dish, but it does not dinner make. So we get back to his place and we make the kugel. I at least expected a salad or something, but I should have listened when he said, you know, I'm a bachelor. So we make the kugel and it comes out perfectly. And the way I do it is it's 50 minutes in the oven at 350 with foil over it. And then the last 10 minutes, you take the foil off and it gets perfectly brown on top and it's incredible. And when I see that he has no other food for me to eat, I eat more kugel that night than I've ever eaten in my entire life because I'm hungry. I need dinner. So we eat like half the kugel and it was in a big, and I brought a big baking dish, you know? So then why I didn't take the leftovers, I don't know. You know what? We'll call it young stupidity. I'm a different person now than I was years ago. Now I'm taking my leftovers and leaving. But anyway, we had a great time, may or may not have kissed on the couch a little bit. I expected that we were going to have another date. So I leave him with the leftovers and my baking dish. Okay. Never hear from Adam again. Adam is gone. Whatever the old definition of ghosting was is what he did to me. And I didn't care. I didn't care that much about the guy. But my baking dish. But you know what? You let these things go. So about a year and a half later, I'm at a happy hour. And across the room, I see Adam. And I recognize him. I recognize everyone. And like on the one hand, at least I have warm memories of the delicious kugel, like grandma would have been very proud. And this is a very fun, but kind of not aside. So my grandma, she passed away about 15 years ago, maybe 20 years ago. And unfortunately, before she passed away, she had Alzheimer's. And I took over the role of making kugel for the family. And one family gathering, she said to me, Erica, this kugel is delicious. Where did you get the recipe? And I said, Grandma, it's yours. And it was very special. So anyway, I see Adam across the room and he comes up to me and he goes, you look familiar. Do I know you? And I didn't want to completely throw him under the bus. So I was like, yeah, I think we went out a couple times, you know, a few years ago. I tried to just play it off. You're Adam, right? And he goes, yeah, what's your name? Erica. And then he looks at me and as if I could see the gears turning in his head, he says to me, wait a minute. Hold on. I have your baking dish. And I go, keep it. And walked away. Thank you so much.
Oh my gosh, that was amazing. If you want to unmute and applaud, you can also use the reactions on the bottom right to applaud or thumbs up.
That was awesome. Thank you for sharing with us.
Your kugel looks delicious.
on the tradition.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Okay. Next up, we have Jay, who is the creator of Clue Town, a series of puzzle scavenger hunts located in iconic outdoor locations, as well as indoor hunts that work in anyone's home. When he isn't designing a puzzle, Jay enjoys being a husband, dad, and lover of breakfast tacos and breakfast tacos. Take it away.
It's true. It's all true. By the way, Eric, I really enjoyed that story. Was laughing a lot. So great story. Hey, everybody, food lovers. My name is Jay Carlson, like Steven said, and I like cooking and eating, and hopefully you do too. The story I'm going to share today is about a potluck that I had. If you remember potlucks, when we could all get together in a room and eat. So much like Erica, we'll get to the food in a second. And right now, I have to tell you that this starts with a dream that I had about 20 years ago. I remember very few dreams in general, maybe 2 a year. It's kind of sad. And whenever I do remember my dreams, they're never absurd or fantastical. They're like, hey, I've got a visitor here who wants to be here. So anyway, so my dreams that I have, they're usually just mundane things. Like I just go shopping or I'm cooking. So there was this one dream I had where I hosted a party, a potluck, and I called it Party on a Stick. And in the dream, I specifically remember people just eating foods with sticks. And if you drank something, it had to be on a stick. And so this is a dream that I thought about a lot. And I would mention it to my wife over the years. And because again, I don't really remember many of my dreams. And it was just one of those things that we were hosting a lot of parties. And I said, you know what, I need to do this. I need to have a party on a stick. So I invited all my friends. And in one of those rare stars aligning, I proposed party on a stick and I had 100% participation and everybody was up for the challenge. And did they bring it? So I have to turn my background off so I can show you some photos here. Okay, so it was a contest. There were, oops, there we go. It was a contest. And I'm gonna show you some of our favorite winners. So here we go. This is probably one of the fan favorites. This is called Steakhouse on a Stick. And it's literally a steakhouse meal in 4 bites. So over here we have blue cheese wrapped bacon wedge salad. Then there's a surf and turf with some broccoli. And for dessert, there's banana Fosters. And that was just kind of like throwing down the gauntlet. And it got, you know, impressive after that too. People would bring dips and you'd have to, instead of using a fork or a chip, you'd have to use like a carrot stick. You had to use celery stalk. Here's another one that won best use of a stick, because again, you could use whatever you wanted as a stick. This is one my friend John made. These are mini churros with walnut and chocolate ball and raspberry at the end. And that one won, yeah, like I said, best stick. And then another one that won best tasting was asparagus stick with cheese, prosciutto, and puff pastry. My contribution to the party is what you see in the stock footage that he used to introduce me.
Yeah.
This is a shrimp boil on a stick. And it was some base seasoning on shrimp, andouille sausage, potatoes, and corn on the cob. And I've got other photos, but the one I really want to leave you with is the one that I remember most clearly from my dream, and that is beer on a stick. So this is before we really filled up the beer container, but you can see I literally taped beer cans and beer bottles to sticks. And here's a friend who's consuming one on a stick. And again, it sounds good in theory, but if you've ever tried to handle a beer or any beverage on a stick, there's a reason why they don't sell it that way. Because it's a thematic success, but it's an engineering failure. It just took a lot. It was almost like a game trying to get a bottle to coordinate with your mouth at that point. So yeah, it was just one of these great times that I think about a lot, especially now that we are in pandemic mode, because I love having people over and I love when people can experiment with food. I also love just sharing food with people and the memories that happen because of it. So thank you very much. That's all I have.
That's amazing. I love it. I'm going to constantly unmute and clap everybody in between. So you can feel free to, only if you remember to mute after.
It was so wonderful, Jay. We were sitting here trying to imagine them drinking beer on a stick. And you know, maybe we're going to have to try lemonade cans on a stick and have a little contest tomorrow, I think. So thank you so much for being here. We loved it. I have the pleasure of introducing you all to our next speaker and our first Sophia with an F, and then following Sophia with a P. And Sophia with an F is a first-generation Latina of Colombian descent, enjoys spending time with her large and boisterous family. She's passionate about civic engagement and empowering others to lead using their unique talents and strengths. When she isn't cooking, she's typically running in her neighborhood and asking people about the plants they have growing in their yard, like someone else I know. Sophia, take it away.
Awesome. Hey, everybody. My name's Sophia. Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. So I'm going to be talking about Colombian arepas. As you can see, this right there. And I'll go ahead and, there we go. So this breakfast that I took a screenshot from an Instagram story. So a little bit about me and my background. So my mom immigrated from Colombia, South America back in the 70s with her entire family. She and my dad met later on in Dunwoody, and my dad is American. So I have this really interesting background where I've grown up bicultural. Most people wouldn't think I was Latina based on my last name, how I look, things like that. So for me, it was really beautiful because my mom and her sisters, everyone immigrated together. So it's very normal for me to run the Beltline or just be out and about in the city. This was pre-COVID, and I would run into my third cousins all the time. It was very normal, and people would always ask me when I was running or walking and I start yelling at somebody, they're like, who is that? And I'd say, oh, well, that's my third cousin, or that's my mom's first cousin's husband. And people are just like, how do you know who your third cousins are? I'm like, oh, everyone immigrated here together. So really, we've got this beautiful family tradition. Everyone is still very close. They all live within the metro area. And I'm the oldest of 14 grandkids. My mom is the oldest of 6. And so my Mimi, which is what I call my grandma, because growing up, I spoke English and Spanish, and I wasn't able to say mamita, as my mom was always calling her mom. So I started calling my grandma Mimi. The name stuck. 14 grandkids later, that's still her name, and she loves it. But something that I remember from being really young was my grandmother would watch so my cousins and I were all born kind of like in sets, really. So there's the 4 oldest grandkids, and we were all born within 2.5 years of each other. And our moms worked. And so my grandma would just watch all 4 of us, and she would literally watch 4 kids under the age of 5. And I don't know how we didn't drive her crazy. And she was just so sweet. She's only been mad at us twice in my entire life. Once when I decided to cut all of her flowers out of her garden, and I brought them to her. I said, I brought you a present. I took all your flowers. And yeah, she kind of lost it, as anyone would. But she was so sweet and compassionate still. But one of the sweetest memories that I have, and she's still alive today, is every Saturday morning, my cousins and we would wake up, because normally we would spend the night on Friday night. We'd wake up, and Saturday mornings we would watch cartoons, and my grandmother would make us arepas, as you can see back here. But we always called it watching monitos. Monitos was I think slang for cartoons. And so we'd watch monitos, eat arepas, and normally arepas, so breakfast food. This is breakfast food from Colombia. This is very similar to, if you ever go to Colombia, this is typically what you'll be able to go ahead and eat. But within Colombia and Venezuela, you have arepas. However, the Venezuelans cook their arepas very differently. They'll typically put meat and cheese and a whole bunch of things, and they cut the arepa. The arepa is basically, it's like a corn pancake. That's the closest thing I can think of. It's a corn pancake. But the way we make ours, because my mom is from Bogotá, she's from the capital, they make theirs with cheese in the middle. And it is so difficult because, as you can see here, this arepa, the way you'll make it is you get the dough, and then you make a little ball, and then you put the cheese in the middle, and then you cover the cheese. So you have to find a way to make this arepa flat, but keep the cheese in, and then you cook it. And it's very difficult. It sounds easy, but it's very, very difficult. And so I always grew up with my grandmother. She would make us arepas y huevitos, eggs, because you typically, like I said, arepa is traditionally a breakfast food. Sometimes you might eat it for lunch, but it's a go-to staple within Colombia. So we always watched our cartoons. We had arepa con huevitos, and we watched our monitos, and we drank apple juice. Apple juice isn't Colombian. I think it's just what my grandma had on deck. But throughout the years, as my mom and her sisters, you know, the rest of her sisters, they got married, we brought more people into the family. Everyone loves my Mimi's arepas. They're the best thing. Typically, my entire family, we will go on vacation together. We'll go to the beach and we'll all stay in the same house because we're obsessed with each other. And while that might sound like a lot for other people, for us, we love it. And one morning during vacation, my grandmother will make arepas for everyone. And I never realized how much of an act of love that was, because arepas take a long time to make. You can't burn them, and they're not easy to make. So I think, you know, cooking was always a way of my grandmother really showing love for us in making the arepas. Now, this picture is really special. I'm actually going to get out of the way here. All right, and I'm going to kind of like point you through everything. So this picture is very special to me. Up here, you see that there's a fruit. It's called maracuya. It's passion fruit. It's very sour. And over here at the bottom, you see the steak and rice with some veggies. So I wanted to make my boyfriend a Colombian breakfast. And it was really cool because what I like about this plate so much is that it's actually a mix of my culture and his culture. His family, they're Lebanese. And we had gone and we had Lebanese food the night before. And in Colombia, it's a tradition that, you know, if you go out and eat the night before, and you always bring leftovers because we don't waste food. There's a saying, because typically we, you know, a lot of people don't go out and eat. You try to save money. There's a phrase that a lot of people say, hay comida en casa. There's food at home. So typically when you don't eat out, you always say, oye, hay comida en casa. But what I love about this plate so much is it's kind of a fusion of my culture with my boyfriend's culture, because we had gone to a Lebanese restaurant the night before. And I think this is like lamb and some rice. Within Colombia, you're always able to, you make leftovers, and it's called calentado, which means reheating. So it was fun because I was able to share part of my culture with him, with the arepas and the maracuya. And then I also said, well, we've got the steak and rice, so let's throw that in as well, because it's very, very traditional in Colombia. And what I loved about it is it just made me think of how my grandmother has always, you know, with her big family and my mom and her sisters marrying out and bringing people into the family, I thought that it's a beautiful way to consider and, you know, really relive that tradition. So thank you all so much. And yeah, just thank you, Julie and Stephen, for hosting me tonight.
Thank you so much, Sophia.
Bravo.
All
I
right.
have the pleasure of introducing the second Sophia. Since Sophia's dad is Canadian and her mom is German, she would spend all her holidays and summers in Germany or Canada. Both of her grandmas would teach her the family recipes, introducing her to many different types of food. From an especially young age, her Canadian grandmother would encourage her to help out in the kitchen and try out all kinds of recipes.
All right. Sophia, we had a little technical difficulty, so we weren't able to put your slide up, but if you want to unmute,
Okay.
spotlight you. And just a friendly reminder to all of our speakers, we have 5 minutes per speaker, and you'll hear a sound that tells you that time is 30 seconds up. So the floor is yours, Sophia.
Thank you. So my story is about my Canadian grandma's canoe recipe. And so my grandma in Canada actually also comes from a German family, and they immigrated to Canada when she was around 8 years old. but they did live in Romania for some time. So this is like the story of kind of where the recipe came from a little bit. So my grandma's mom, so my great grandma, she got the recipe back from her grandma back in like the 1930s when they were living in Romania. So yeah, growing up, I always loved hearing stories about my grandparents and their parents and stuff. So, so this is a story she'd always tell me about like kind of her grandparents. So my great grandma's father was a decorator, and one of his hobbies was he liked to paint. And I'm not sure if this part's true, but according to my great grandma, he would love to paint and like to paint in the palace, because at the time Romania still had a king. So he'd go and paint in the palace. I thought it was kind of interesting. And yeah, but my great grandma's grandma, apparently she was a very amazing cook. And one of her favorite things to do was she'd visit her great grandma on Sundays after church. And she'd always make her a bowl of soup with these canoodles in it. And that was always like her favorite snack and stuff, after church. So obviously my grandma made this for me as a kid too. And yeah, but she turned into a really fun activity. And I just remember as a kid just spending hours making these, and it was really fun because we could turn them into any sort of shape. Instead of being like a traditional noodle, she let us turn them into stars or hearts or whatever we wanted. And that was always just like really fun and exciting. And my personal specialty was I would turn them into little like octopuses. So I'd take two like thin strands, wrap them together, and they only had 4 legs, but they were my specialty, and I would spend hours making them and like perfecting them. And yeah, so that's just kind of where the recipe came from. And that was my first real like recipe that I would make. And that just kind of like introduced me to cooking. And that started so now I really like cooking, and it's a favorite hobby of mine. And yeah, so it's a really special recipe to me because it just started my whole hobby of cooking. Thank you.
That's so sweet. Thank you, Sophia.
Thank you so much for sharing. So next we have Rabbi Lyle Rothman, who I get the pleasure of introducing because Rabbi serves as the Chief Experience Officer at the University of Miami Hillel, and I attend the University of Miami, so I've known Rabbi Lyle for quite a few years. He has served as the chair of the University of Miami Chaplains Association for 3 years, and he's involved with multi-faith initiatives on campus and all around South Florida. And he also happens to be from Long Island, just like I am. Take it away.
Thank you, Stephen. And hi, everyone. I am from Long Island, and so it's sort of nice to have another Long Islander introduce me. Fun fact, my 3rd grade teacher and Stephen worked together at camp. So there's a lot of good overlap there. So I'm talking about chicken soup, not so much the matzo balls that are there, but I'm talking about my grandma Miriam's chicken soup. So most people make chicken soup, and they do it sort of a traditional way. You add the chicken, you add the vegetables, you boil it for a very long time, and voila, you have chicken soup. But my grandmother always made it slightly differently. She made her chicken soup using marrow bones, flanken, and chicken and vegetables. So I want to talk a little bit about that and what that tastes like. So first, what she would do is she'd actually put the marrow bones in the very bottom of the soup. And then you sort of clean off the foam and the fat that sort of bubbled up to the very top. But flanken, and then you'd add the flanken. Now the flanken is the sort of flank area of the cow, the underbelly area, the short ribs. So if you've ever gone to a restaurant and ordered short ribs, essentially that's what flanken is. So without all the juicy barbecue sauce or whatever, goes right into the soup. And so what it does is, one, it gives the soup a little bit more of a meaty flavor, makes it a little bit darker. But the one thing that flanken's a tough piece of meat unless you cook it forever. And so the most amazing part of making a chicken soup with flanken is that you get to eat the flanken after, which falls right off the bone. Honestly, it's incredible. And so there's really nothing sort of dramatically different to the soup than anyone else's chicken soup. It was just the fact that she would always make it with flanken. Now you have to understand that you don't need so many pieces of flanken in a regular chicken soup. So, in a regular pot, let's say she'd make it, she'd put 2 pieces of flanken in it. And then we would all fight over who got the flanken and the chicken in their chicken soup. So years later, when my mom sort of started, taking over holidays, we just bought more flanken because it wasn't fair that my dad and my mom were always fighting over the flanken. What about the rest of the guests? And so that's part of the story. The other part of the story is that my grandfather, my grandmother's from Germany, my grandfather was from Poland, and my grandfather also liked making soup, but he made different soups. But he was the bottler. He always bottled the soup. And so what that really meant was taking old, clean, but old sort of jars that you would find like tomato sauce in, or probably in their case, like gefilte fish, probably like store-bought borscht. So he would take those jars and put the soup in the jar, and then take a piece of plastic over that, and then tie the lid, tighten the lid. I have no idea why he did that, but the only thing I can actually think of is that you get a great layer of schmaltz on top of the soup, and schmaltz is like the fat that comes on the top of the soup. And then when you want to make really good matzo balls, you take that schmaltz, that fat from the top of the soup that was sealed in so well, potentially with that plastic cover, and then you add that as the fat for the matzo balls instead of using oil, and you have the most amazing chicken soup. And the last story I'll share is that when I lived in Israel, for my first year of rabbinical school, I really wanted to make chicken soup for Rosh Hashanah like my grandmother did. And so I went to the shuk, to the outdoor market, chicken was easy to find. I was trying to find flanken, but no one spoke Yiddish in the market. And so I went on what I was calling the wild flanken chase across Jerusalem. And I ended up at a market that caters to Anglos, Americans, and they said, well, we don't have it here, but if you go to this market in Mea Shearim, which is like sort of a Haredi area, you'll find flanken. And lo and behold, I walked in, I didn't speak Yiddish, but I said, flanken? And he was like, come here, gave me the flanken, made the soup, and it was amazing. So I share that with all of you. And so the next time you make chicken soup, why don't you try some marrow bones and some flanken? It makes it taste really good. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, the one drawback of not being in a live theater is you can't see everybody's reactions, but Lyle, that was awesome.
Thank
I'm
you.
going to pull up our next slide. And for people who are asking questions, we're doing our best to answer in the chat, giving you some definitions. So we're hoping that will help make the stories go even further for all of you.
Okay. So thank you, Lyle. Our next speaker is also involved with the Miami Hillel. She is the wife of the CEO of the Miami Hillel. Olga is a Russian-born, Jerusalem and New York educated, Miami living and loving Jewish educator, mom, foodie, and a storyteller. Olga enjoys cooking, beloved family and friends' recipes, and collects stories that inspired them.
Yes,
Hey.
the floor is all mine.
It's all yours.
Awesome. Hi, guys. I'm also working at the different Hillel. I'm not only known as my husband's wife, but as an independent professional. But here right now, I am mainly as a cook and a storyteller. So my story is a little bit different. When I was 16 years old, I was a foreign exchange student. And you can probably hear from my accent and from my first name that I was born and raised in Russia. And out of all places in the world, I would have made you guess, but the name of the story gave it away. Out of all places on earth, I was placed by my highly competitive high school exchange program in Litchfield, Kentucky. So Litchfield, Kentucky, for those of you who are not familiar with it, is a rural community with about 6,000 people population. It's mainly horse farms and the cornfields and tobacco farms and fields, whatever. So in any way possible, this was a very different experience for me. First of all, it was my dream. I really wanted to go and study in the United States, but I could never imagine what I would come across, right? So I did live on a horse farm with a family of hardcore evangelical Christians. I am Jewish, raised in a Jewish family. I'm an urban girl who lived on a farm. My host family was participating in Civil War reenactments, so we got to sleep in tents and ride horses and dress up in costumes, which was very different. I have one sibling, and I was living with a family of 6 children and grandchildren, everybody living together. So in any shape or form, it was extremely different. Like anything you can imagine was different. The food was different, the school was different, the pencils were different, the stores were different. You name it, it was different. One thing for sure, though, although people could be as different as possible living in Kentucky, their souls, their neshamas were the same. And right away when I landed in Louisville, actually Kentucky, and I pronounce it with the Kentucky accent if I want, it's Louisville, not Louisville. So the moment I landed in Louisville, I knew that I met my people. And I really bonded with them and really connected with them. And all these years later, this was in 2000, so 21 years later, we're still good friends and we keep in touch and we visit them, and they've met my husband, who is the director at UM Hillel, and they've met my children and so on and so forth. So like I said, many things happened to me there for the first time. I fell in love, I had my prom, I had the Thanksgiving party, I had the Christmas party, I went to church potlucks I've never been to before. I didn't know the word potluck before I went to Kentucky. I've tasted bologna sandwiches and lasagna and garlic bread and ice cold tea, all these things I've never had before. And one of my favorite things was actually the southern chili that my host mom Jeannie cooked. And you know, we're talking about getting into the soup season, and you might think that this is a dish which is perfect for the cold season, for the winters, but actually in my mind, the chili which is behind me is the recipe that we used to cook for the hay picking. For those of you who don't know, hay picking, and for me that's really the essence of my experience in Kentucky, is we lived on a farm and we were in charge of the animals who needed hay. So when the season came, somewhere in the beginning of the summer, you couldn't do it alone, it's too much work. So you would really gather your community around you. You would have the boyfriends and the cousins and the church friends and the classmates. Everybody came together, everybody helped with what they could, and then of course everybody got together for lunch. And I remember my host mom Jeannie making this huge pot of chili and serving it. So all these years later in my own kitchen, and now I live in Miami, Florida, I like eating my chili with, you know, you can see that I cook it with meat, obviously. I love eating it with pasta in it, with some noodles, spaghetti mostly, with some shredded cheese and sour cream, sorry Rabbi Lyle, not so kosher. And I also, 2 of my favorite things to eat it with, and I don't know why, just mainly because that's the tradition, that's how we ate it in Kentucky. I would eat it with saltine crackers, seen here on the other side, like heavily buttered, and then of course a cup of the ice cold drink, which should be in the mason jar because that's how you drink it in the South, right? So it would be either an ice cold tea, very sweet with obviously ice in this mason jar, or Coke. And to me, there is nothing more perfect, there is nothing more homey and comfort food than a bowl of the steaming hot chili with a side of saltine crackers and an ice cold drink. And that's my story.
Amazing. Olga, you have a lot of chili fans, Cincinnati fans. Check out the spotlight. Mason jar fans. What a great, great story.
We are actually native Cincinnatians, so special place in our heart for that.
One second. Hold on. I want to try. Stephen made this amazing playlist, and I'm having trouble with the technical, so hold on, let's see. Hopefully I don't blow everyone's eardrums out. Hold on. Okay, can you hear us okay? Okay, yeah. Take it away, Emmy and Alana.
Well, first, one of Olga's classes, and hear more about and I recently found out in the chat that Liz Aaron and Rick Fleming are also Cincinnati chili fans. And I can't wait to tell you more about them. When Marissa and George got married, it was a joining of cultures. George is American-born Chinese and wanted to recognize his heritage, and Marissa is Jewish and wanted to incorporate some traditional Jewish practices as well. And so they're going to tell you more about it. Keep the adorable wedding photo here. I had to make a new format for the graphic just so I could include it. They were so gorgeous.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, so George and I got married last May. I'm Jewish and George is American-born Chinese, and we really wanted to honor both cultures at our wedding, and it turned out really well. We had a traditional Chinese tea ceremony and a ketubah signing, which is the Jewish marriage contract. We got married under a chuppah, which is the traditional Jewish wedding canopy, and it had a double happiness symbol, as you can see in the picture. So we integrated our cultures that way, and we also wanted to pay tribute to our alma maters, our respective alma maters. I went to the University of Florida, and George went to The Ohio State University.
That's right. Go Bucks.
So we definitely incorporated elements of that throughout the night too. But we both agreed that the most important part was the food. Food is a very important part of both of our cultures. So when we were thinking about what we wanted to serve our guests, we knew that we wanted to serve food that we loved and food that showed an appreciation of who we were as a couple and celebrated George's Chinese heritage and also my family's Jewish traditions. And one thing that we thought about right away that we knew we wanted to have was this, the Hong Kong egg tart. It has a flaky, buttery crust and a rich custard filling, and it's not too sweet. So we were actually able to serve it with dinner. But one of the more important, a couple of the concerns that we had was we wanted to make sure that it was authentic, and we wanted to make sure that it was made fresh.
Yeah, so one of the things that our venue wanted was that they insisted that we use their in-house catering service, and yeah, that's pretty typical. And when our families came together and visited the venue, the catering crew had a little surprise for us, and they were trying to basically wow us with a sample of a Chinese dish that they made. It's a very nice intent, but it was heavily Americanized. It had simply too much soy in it. It was very salty. And it just didn't really strike our confidence, give us a lot of confidence that they would be able to pull this off. However, they had mentioned that they were open to feedback, and because my family, growing up, we had owned a Chinese restaurant, we were happy to provide it, from my dad being a chef, from one chef to another. This really worked out because one of the things that that as Marissa mentioned, is that egg tarts are a delicacy. You commonly see it served with dim sum. If you go abroad, you see it in a lot of Asian, Chinese bakeries, and they take a little bit to make. Really, what it is that it's a layered pastry with egg that looks like that's been steamed. And another thing that we had also wanted was we wanted a noodle station too. We wanted to serve noodles. Noodles represent a long life in Chinese culture. And so one of the points of feedback that we gave them was, obviously, don't use too much soy, cut the vegetables a little differently, and of course, use things such as green onions, use some more egg. But we also gave them a little bit of direction. Being in Atlanta, we are very fortunate to have an international strip, Beaufort Highway. And Beaufort Highway happened to have a lot of eateries.
Okay, I guess, I'm watching.
Had a lot of eateries, which had both noodles and the egg tarts, specifically the Hong Kong Bakery and Lanzhou Noodle Shop. Those are our two favorites, and those were pretty much the benchmark that we had hoped that the catering team would strive to. And so that was where we directed them. By the next tasting, it was quite obvious that things had improved. They gave us samples of the egg tarts, which looked very authentic, and also a noodle dish that was also authentic. That was just perfect. It wasn't too sweet, wasn't too salty. And what we found out was that they had really taken a lot of time up and down Beaufort Highway to really learn how to make this dish for us.
Yeah, so it was great. So for this occasion, not only for the pictures that we took for this, the pictures that you saw on the slide, we bought egg tarts, and then we bought more egg tarts just so we can have them for this occasion and so we can eat them. These are not the Hong Kong style egg tarts. These are we think Portuguese style, which are similar. And when Julia sends out the link to the recipe for the egg tarts, they do talk on the blog a little bit about the difference, but that's it.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Guess we're happy. Yummy.
I wish we were together so we could taste some of these egg tarts. They look amazing.
They're delicious.
I'm sorry I have lost the document that is our slides. So whoever is going next, take it away from the Tradition Kitchens team and I'll pull it up.
I'm excited to introduce Selena. Selena is a food enthusiast at heart from her early childhood days where she learned how to chop veggies using a cleaver alongside her mom since she was 5 years old. Passionate about seasonality and sustainability, she spent the last 5 years building a food startup from the ground up on the business side.
Selena.
Sorry, I just unmuted myself. Okay. Good evening, everyone, and thanks for having me here tonight on Tradition Kitchens. I'm excited to be here. I actually went to the supermarket to buy my favorite leafy greens, which is on the slide. It's, hopefully you can see it, it's bok choy. It's you know, part of the story of me being obsessed with leafy greens, and it's probably not something that most people would say is their favorite food, but for me, it's kind of like a food of comfort. And maybe one of the other speakers, I think it was George, maybe you can relate to this, being from a similar background. But I grew up in a Chinese American family in California. And strangely enough, I grew up in a suburb called San Mateo, which was near San Francisco, that at the time, you know, I was very much a minority. You know, now I think population has shifted quite a bit. So, you know, folks of my background are not a minority. But, you know, growing up, I didn't have anyone that looked like me as a friend in the classroom. And so it was very interesting kind of talking about what people would eat for dinner every night. And so I grew up eating veggies like this almost every day. Of course, there's other varieties of things that are not bok choy, but there's things that are related to this family, such as Chinese broccoli, Napa cabbage, other greens. But you know, basically our typical dinner table plate included steamed jasmine rice, veggies, of course. This is very much almost half the plate, and some sort of protein as such as chicken or stir-fried beef or shrimp or steamed fish. And so that was kind of like the holy trio of what we would have for a typical weeknight dinner. And so it was very different from what my other peers and classmates ate at their dinner tables, but it was fun to kind of share that growing up. And so I think, you know, I think this year has been interesting as well. I think COVID kind of has kind of made us think about foods that we grew up with a lot, at least for me personally. I sometimes draw back to my roots to kind of find comfort in a way that, you know, just to think about the foods that I grew up eating. And so I just wanted to highlight leafy greens as a thing that I enjoy. And it's one of those things where, you know, for me, if I don't exercise or if I don't brush my teeth, I feel very different and off, and something's just not balanced. And so eating leafy greens for me is kind of one of those things. And so it's been ingrained in my just every day. And so I also wanted to show you how to prep these bok choy leafy greens. In addition to the recipe that will be shared, I just wanted to show you really basically, you know, what to do with this. So it's super simple to prep. So basically all you need is a sharp paring knife, and you just cut off the stem like this. And then you kind of break it apart and leave it whole. And they're so baby and tender that you don't need to cut them beyond that. And you just kind of dump them into a big bowl of water. And you kind of switch it around once or twice. And very much like spinach or kale or leeks, a lot of the residue and the sandy kind of particles will drain to the bottom. And so that way you can get all the particles out and then just drain them before you stir fry. And the stir fry part is super easy. It takes less than 5 minutes. You don't need any special equipment or any special ingredients. You just need some neutral oil that has this high smoking point and some salt. And that's basically it. And I promise it'll take you less than 5 minutes. And you can basically eat it with anything that, such as proteins or a grain bowl or anything. So hope you all enjoy and get to experiment with some leafy greens.
Thank you, Selena, for sharing that beautiful story about your traditions. I love hearing it. And it's really nice. Everyone has such unique, beautiful stories that you're opening up and sharing with us. And feel free to keep the chat going in Zoom or the reactions. And we love to see how everyone is taking these great stories. And just a reminder, we will be sharing all the recipes or variations of them afterwards, along with our new Tradition Kitchens e-cookbook. So all of you for coming will be the first ones to get access to recipes that we have gathered from our first year of being an organization that brings together different cultures, neighborhoods, and also generations. So I'm gonna have the pleasure of introducing our next speaker. So let's see if I can manage the technology at the same time. Okay, next up is Karan. Karan, most of the places that you have worked, a modest pan of whatever you brought to work to share from your baking was enough. But at one particular job, it wasn't quite the case. Karan is going to tell us this phenomenal story. Take it away, Karan.
So I'm a cobbler girl. I'm from the South. From Georgia, Atlanta, and I love cobblers. I love all things baked cobblers. So I've developed a reputation of making them. I've learned from my father's mother, we called her Bubby. Don't know why we called her Bubby. I didn't know Bubby was Yiddish for grandmother until I was an adult, but we called her Bubby. So Bubby one day made an apple cobbler, so we thought it was apple. And my dad was eating it and he says, Ma, this tastes a little different. She said, oh, I ran out of apples, so I just threw some pears in there. We were like, this is genius. Why, thinking all this time we were eating apple and next thing you know, just get this burst of another flavor. So then began the journey of, oh, you can start mixing other fruits in with your cobblers. So cobblers have just always been something that I find comforting. I make them more in the warmer months. And one of the things I used to do a lot of when I started a job or I got past a 90-day probationary period, how about that? I would bring in a baked good. So other places I worked, I'm in the Maryland area. Other places I've worked, I'd bring in these massive pans of I'd make a Coca-Cola cake. I've made other stuff and there would still be some left over. So I'm thinking, all right, in the future moving forward, I'm just going to bring in a modest pan of whatever I make. So I think this had to be at least a year in maybe at this job. It was a affordable housing group. And I decided, all right, it's a great fall morning. At the time I lived right off of a bus line. I could take the bus to work or I could walk to work. It was great. So I had the cobbler and the bus driver tried to take it from me. And this was a special one because I had mixed blueberries in with it. And whenever I make them the morning of, so I get up early and make it fresh and everything. So blueberry peach cobbler, mix them together. So I get to work, it's all wrapped up and I go and I walk in. I get to work about 9:30-ish on most days. And I go put it down in our break room. So I walk back to my desk. My desk is not that far from the break room. I think maybe not even, 10 feet or so. Like it's right in front of my boss's office, well, my old boss at that time. And you come around the corner and my little workstation was right there. Thinking that I had time to send out a quick little email. Hey, good morning. Left you guys some cobbler in the break room. That didn't get to happen because I was accosted at my desk by several coworkers who were like, oh my gosh, what? And I was like, what's wrong? And they're like, well, I ate the cobbler. I got the cobbler. And then next thing you know, several other people start coming over. I only got a tablespoon. Do you have any more? And I said, wait. I didn't even send out what it was. Well, we opened it. We saw it. And we knew you made it. And I said, wait a minute. Next thing I know, I'm trying to, tell the people, I hadn't even gotten a chance to really fully introduce this. But next thing I know, the CFO comes around the corner. And I'm not sure what he wants at this point, because I'm defending off all these other people that are attacking me about my cobbler and how there wasn't enough and how they only got a spoonful. And he says, you need to go home and make another cobbler. And I'm like, that's not another duty as assigned. That's not even a stretch of my duties at this job. He said, well, we need to add it to your responsibilities. I'm like, that's not good. Yeah. So from then on, I had no choice about what I was bringing to any company function. From then on, I also was very cautious about when I started bringing in different items. And from then on, I could actually charge a little bit for my cobblers. The one in the picture is one that I made for a coworker. It's just peaches in this one. And he took it to a church event, but yeah, my cobbler got me in trouble. And from then on, also, my coworkers would not greet me. They'd say, did you break anything for us today? I was like, good morning. Good morning. No, I'm just a walking cobbler. Okay, great, thanks. So that is how cobblers get me in trouble, and how I am very cautious about when I take things into offices now. I have a new job that I started during COVID. And since I started remotely, I haven't made anything for them, obviously, but yeah, I have to be very cautious about my baked goods. That's it.
As someone who has tasted your amazing baking in the past, I can attest to this is a problem. I can understand. And the audience also relates. Karan, definitely check out the chat. You got to scroll up. You can find everyone's favorite cobbler flavors and reactions. This was beautiful. Thank you so much. We are going to keep going. I know we are a little bit over. We have 3 amazing stories left. So stick with us, because this has been such a fun journey for us as we've planned it for the first time. So I'm going to toss it to our Tradition Kitchens ambassador to introduce Ken.
Thank you very much. So next we have Ken, who is a copywriter by day and a super amateur chef by night. He enjoys being the person his friends ask for restaurant suggestions, sharing culinary adventures on Instagram, and exploring different cultures through food. When not engaged in those activities, he writes music reviews, runs a pop culture podcast with friends, and collects comic books. Take it away, Ken.
Let's see, where's Ken? I saw you with all the ice cream earlier. Spotlight you. Let's see, I see Ken, but I don't see Ken.
I was still on mute.
Oh, okay.
Sorry about that.
There we go. I'm going to spotlight you now.
Hello?
Yeah, we hear you. No?
Hello?
There we go. There you are.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
I'm sorry. I think I just started having a weak connection. So I'm going to try to talk really fast and hopefully nothing happens again. But can you guys still hear me?
You're good.
Hello? Okay, cool, cool. Well, I'm just gonna talk. And I think maybe your voices are being pixelated, but I think you guys can hear me. So, but I just wanted to talk about the time I made ice cream for a friend's birthday. So in general, my mom didn't keep a lot of sweets around the house. Even though we had our fill of traditional Southern foods like fried chicken, macaroni and cheese, potato salad, cookie cakes, and pies were things that were rare. The exception was ice cream. Every once in a while we go to the local Dairy Queen in our small Ohio town to get sundaes or dilly bars or strawberry Oreo blizzards, as my mom used to love to order. And it'd just be a reward or, a way of celebrating a birthday and, occasionally just because. But, when you become an adult and you make your own rules, you get to have ice cream whenever you want. And while having ice cream for breakfast, that dream of the child is still a little bit ludicrous. Having a bowl of cookie dough ice cream for dinner is totally okay after a long day of adulting, but not really. Because after a while, ice cream begins to represent unintended pounds you get from eating your feelings. But hey, even though you have some positive and negative feelings associated with ice cream, there's still times for it. Like when a friend told me they have never had a birthday party, and I felt like that was a travesty. So me and a few other friends, we all decided we were going to throw a party for them. And I felt like one of the important things you need to have at your party is ice cream, right? And so I asked them what their favorite ice cream was. And you'd think it would be something simple like chocolate or mint chip or butter pecan, but his favorite flavor was something that didn't even exist. Or, okay, I'm lying, it used to exist. Jenny's Splendid Ice Cream creates all these different amazing ice cream flavors. And in 2017, she created this flavor called Osmanthus and Blackberry Crackle, which is basically like a peach flavored tea with like fancy blackberry Jolly Ranchers in it, cracked up in it. So I was like, well, since I can't buy it, let me try to make it, right? I've got YouTube, I've got the internet, I've recreated stuff that Ina Garten has made. I'm sure I can do this. But of course, I kind of bit off more than I could chew trying to do that. So the first problem with that is, at the time, I didn't actually own an ice cream machine. But I figured, hey, I can still do this because I've seen YouTube videos where people would just put some cream together with some sweetened condensed milk, put it in your freezer, and bam, you've got ice cream. So I'm like, okay, I can do that. The second problem was finding the osmanthus tea. I thought I could order it online, but when I was looking online, I was worried I was going to end up buying sawdust or magic beans or something that didn't taste like what it was supposed to taste like. So I went to Buford Highway, Atlanta's Chinatown, and I went to this little market and I talked to these ladies there who worked there and tried to ask, okay, which one of these should I buy? And even though there was a slight language barrier, a smile, a nod, and the word no went a long way in helping me find what I needed. And then the last part was the Blackberry Crackle, which I thought I could just buy, but then I realized that the company that makes it was no longer in business. So I was like, okay, I can do this myself, and this is a challenge. But what I ended up was, I thought I had it perfect. The right color, the right sheen. It looked like homemade Jolly Ranchers. You could even see the real bits of blackberry fruit. But it didn't taste like a Jolly Rancher. For some reason, it ended up tasting like a Werther's Original. A purple Werther's Original, which I do not understand how that happens. But hey, it's a learning experience. So undeterred, and I'm like, well, maybe magic will happen if I put all this together in a package. And I did. And to kind of hide the fact that it wasn't 100%, I made this little dessert tray with all your, ice cream toppings and accoutrements and things, and also bought a quart of vanilla ice cream just to cover my tracks. And, my friend and everybody said they loved it and adored it. But with that said, a week later, I called them up just to, get the truth. And like, most friends, where they're giving you a little bit of truth where they don't want to hurt your feelings, and they start talking a little slow. He was like, yeah, it wasn't that. I don't know what it was. It wasn't close, but thanks. And like Socks at Christmas, it was the thought that counts. But, the bright spot of that is they actually found me an ice cream maker at the Goodwill. Apparently a bunch of people have tried to make ice cream on their own, and they don't succeed. So they sent it to the Goodwill, and they got me one there. And I've just been practicing with it. And it's been a great thing for me over the course of the quarantine to practice and perfecting making ice cream. I still haven't gotten the osmanthus blackberry crackle down, but as far as making favorites like butter pecan and originals like sweet potato pie and chicken and waffles, I've been doing a pretty good job. So, and that's it. I still can't hear anybody, so I hope you guys heard me.
We heard everything. So impressive how you put it all on the line to try to help a friend, especially with ice cream, because that stuff is tricky.
Thank you.
For sure. All right, thank you so much for sharing, Ken. We're so happy we were able to hear you the whole time. It's great. I get to introduce Raisha next, who writes stories about the messiness of life, mostly food, faith, flowers, and family. She helps others by writing their stories by questioning them, like the best of Jewish mothers questioned her. This story that we're about to hear, I think, spilled out of her during a visit home when everything about their life and that town had just changed, and the only thing that stayed the same was those people and their acceptance of her. Can't wait to hear more. Take it away.
You're muted, just so you know.
Yeah, I think I just unmuted you.
All good.
Yeah. Okay. So I'll start again. So thanks so much for introducing me like that. I appreciate it. And I'm so excited to be here, a little nervous, but excited to be here to read my story. So here we go. To those who think chopped liver is name calling. I found myself fighting Leon Minsky for the final forkful of chopped liver. I slipped stealthily into his personal space, boxed him out with buttocks and bosom,
if you can see, they can see.
And reached for the Ritz just in time. A quick swish swash of the knife over the cracker, and with that smooth move, the deed was done. Leon and I have two things in common: my mother and Jewish food. He makes such a mouth-watering potato latke that I've traveled 3,000 miles just to be within grabbing distance when the hot ones come off the electric skillet. And over the past few years, while Mama has been recovering from hip surgery complications, he's been a mensch, Yiddish for an honorable, decent person, an authentic person, a person who helps you when you need help. So when we found ourselves face to face with the final morsels of this mainstay of Jewish delicacies, it turned Southern. No, you have it, I minced, forcing a smile through teeth that Dr. Press Thornton had barely kept out of braces. I've had plenty, I added, lying. Who could ever have enough chopped liver? Sugar, he said, let me fix this last cracker for you. Only Leon Minsky or Eddie Marblestone or Leslie Bloomberg could get away with calling me Sugar. Sugar is a synonym for all things positive in the South, including, we're just so proud of you for breathing. I didn't need that extra cracker, especially slathered with the fatty yumminess that some Jews call heaven. My jeans were already tight, my airflow constricted, but then neither did Leon. One other thing we share, rotund figures. Now that's not a very Christian thing to say, I know, about Leon or anyone. Mama used that line once when referring to local news about a churchgoer who had stepped off or over the acceptable line. Sort of a semi-slap of the wrist comment along the lines of, if you can't say anything nice, don't say anything at all. To have a Jewish mother remark on what is or isn't Christian sums up my identity: Southern, Jewish, complicated. My divergent journey began in 4th grade when I passed around matzah and butter to my classmates to celebrate the beginning of Passover as a counterpart to the foil-covered chocolate eggs that somehow represented Christ the King's resurrection. And later in the year, the menorah and candles I brought in didn't dim the Christmas spirits of my classmates. We played dreidel and sang Holy Night in the same hour. So with the recent face-off between Leon, the chopped liver, and myself, I could have gone down a philosophical path and asked, what would Jesus do? Instead, I looked at Mr. Minsky, asked for permission, and devoured the final bite. Then, dabbing my mouth with a cloth napkin, I asked if he would share his special recipe. Of course, sugar, of course.
Yay.
Thank you. That's so sweet.
Fabulous, Risha. That was awesome.
Risha, you did good.
Oh, thank you, Aunt Susan.
But our chopped liver is probably better than his.
Loved it, Risha.
Thank you. Thanks for coming, folks.
Yeah, thanks, Ree. That was great.
Thanks,
Jeffrey.
You got a lot of fans, Risha.
We love chopped liver. We love her
Loved
chopped
it, Risha. You did good.
Oh,
Hi,
thanks,
Jake.
Daddy.
Hi, Jake.
Hello, Susan.
That's Julie.
Oh, Julie. Hey, Julie.
Hey. It's
Hey,
your
Julie.
sixth stepsister-in-law
Good place to
or
meet
whatever.
then.
Hi, Jake and Risha. That was just wonderful. We love you.
Was.
My fan club. Thank you so much, everyone, for showing up.
Bye, Risha.
All right.
Julie, we'll just take it over from here. now.
Yeah. No worries. We're happy to have you. That'll be the after party. We got to get through one more great story. And we're almost there. This is beautiful. And let us know if you're a fan of chopped liver in the chat or not. We've been having some fun questions. So Risha, you can take a look. I think Emmy or Alana, are you going to wrap us up?
Yeah. Yes. I have the joy of introducing our last speaker, Nicole. Nicole shares with us today. Her grandmother is Italian, and growing up, she always spent evenings and weekends at her grandmother's house. Cooking with her and her sister, they made the most delicious dishes from scratch, except for Bisquick pancakes that they loved to make most Sunday mornings. Holidays were always her favorite, as they made tons of food from scratch, and her favorite memory was making ravioli with them.
Hey guys, my name is Nicole. If you notice my picture, I was asking my mom for pictures of me and my grandmother. My grandmother passed away like 10 years ago, and she couldn't find any. So what I did put a picture of on the slide deck is me more recently. I actually started like a food blog on Instagram about 5 years ago, just out of kind of my love for food. And after kind of some personal reflection, I realized I started it because of my grandmother. So it kind of came full circle. That's at a restaurant here in Atlanta. So it's not of my grandmother's food, but I thought it would be kind of an interesting tie-in because it's kind of where all of this started. So my grandmother is actually not my biological grandmother. My mom was adopted. She was born in Italy and she was adopted very young, but the grandparents who adopted her, my grandmother was Italian. So it was kind of nice that I got to grow up with Italian culture, even though we weren't really biologically related to them. My mom's two brothers were also adopted from separate families. So it was kind of a cool way to have that Italian culture, but in kind of like a disjointed, blended family kind of way. My parents both worked growing up. So I was always at my grandmother's house with my sister, Katie, and we would just basically cook and eat all the time. My grandmother was an amazing cook, and we just made a bunch of stuff from scratch, except for pancakes. Usually on Sunday mornings, we would use Bisquick, and that was like kind of an inside joke that we would not make those from scratch because it was just easier. But I kind of got the reputation after wanting to cook with my grandmother of being the first person in line at like every family meal. We ate together a lot as a family, and I was always the first one to start kind of the buffet line, if you will. So it was kind of like my, like the joke about me as a kid. But really this happened a lot, during the week, normal family stuff, but especially at the holidays. So for Thanksgiving and Christmas, we would make like the typical ham, turkey, mashed potatoes, all that kind of stuff. But we'd always make pasta, which is really funny. We would have like antipasti and, salamis and meats and cheeses, ham, turkey, like all the traditional American food. And then we would have ravioli and then like coffee and dessert. So it was like a 5-6 course meal every holiday season. But the best part for me was making ravioli. So we would make it from scratch. This isn't really a method that I've seen a lot like online. I was having trouble finding pictures. We used a tool kind of like this one that you see here, but the one my grandmother had was like super old. It was rusted. You know, you really can't find something like that anymore. And there's actually been an argument over who gets it after she passed away, and we're kind of still fighting over it. But we would basically hand make dough, roll it out on this little metal piece, spoon in the ricotta, lay the second piece of dough on top, you know, cut them out, boil them. We'd make our own tomato sauce. And this is kind of what it would look like here on the right before we would put the second layer of dough on. So just a super fun memory. After my grandmother passed away, I actually tried to make the ravioli with the same machine, and I failed miserably, and it was like really, really disappointing. So it's kind of like something that I could only really do with her. But what a cool thing is about the whole story is my grandmother didn't use any recipes. She would do everything from scratch and never really follow any sorts of like protocol, measurements, anything. But then she kind of secretly, we learned later on in her life, she wrote down all the recipes that she used in like a little handwritten book. Most of them were her Christmas cookies. She would make like hundreds of cookies and send them to family around the country every year. But she had them all written down. I'm still trying to get my hands on that too. But just kind of a cool thing to look back on, that she did document all the recipes. So hopefully one day I can actually make it for real. But that's my story. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicole. That was beautiful and such a memorable tribute to your grandma. We loved it. Everyone's story has had a really wonderful thread about their personal or professional connections, and they've all been really sweet. Thank you so, so much. We are at the end of our stories, and I'm going to toss it to Stephen to wrap us up, but I want to just quickly, from the bottom of my heart, thank everybody for first, you know, opening your stories to all of us. It's not easy to come up on a virtual stage, and thanks for being part of that. Stephen, I won't take away too many of your remarks, but for all of you who joined, who are our friends or who are our new friends, we're so, so grateful. So Stephen, take it away in closing, and I want to just shout out to you how much I appreciate your incredible work to make this event possible, as well as Emmy and Alana. It was so much fun partnering with you to make this happen. So Stephen.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here. Thanks to Julia, Emmy, Alana, all of our guests, and all of our speakers. It was really special, amazing night that we all experienced together. And we hope that you'll stay connected with the Tradition Kitchens community. So if you don't already follow us, I would love to ask you to please take out your phone to follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Tradition Kitchens. Or if you'd like to use your Zoom device, I just linked our pages in the chat. And as a thank you for joining us, as Julia said, we are going to be sending you our exclusive e-cookbook to continue to make memories together. And just a little bit about the future, we have 2 upcoming events, including Turkish food on October 8th and Zoodles from Munich on October 18th. And we'll be in touch via email and our social media with all of the details. We wish you lots of sweetness in the future, and we hope to see you again soon. Have a great night, everybody.
Bye. And if you want to unmute as you're leaving and applaud our great speakers, we welcome that. Now is time to mute noise.
So fun. Thank you so wonderful.
Thank you.
Thanks,
guys.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, I think I did too.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Stephen and Julia. It was awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Yes.
Thanks, everybody. It's always our favorite part, watching everyone drop off.
Great job, you guys. Thanks for including me again.
Oh, yes. Thank you, Risha. It was really great.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
All right. Emmy, Alana, Stephen, high five. Looks like some people might just be on their screens. Bye, Marilyn. It was.
Bye, thank you. It was great.
Sorry if you had technical issues. I just saw your message, but I'm glad you came.
Oh, no, I got it. Is the one in Munich Amanda?
Yes.
Yay. I didn't even know about that.
Surprise. Yes, definitely. All right.
Thank you. I was just
soon.
following you on Facebook.
Sounds good. All right.
Okay.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.